So we will continue 23 endocrine system, and we already talked about the growth hormone, including the abnormalities, with whether it is higher secretion than normal or lower secretion. There is recombinant growth hormone that they make it by genetic engineering if needed. I mean, if somebody's having low amount or low level of growth hormone, it can be given. Um, so hormones regulate, is it slow or fast? I think we now know these are the basics. Remember the endocrine system versus the nervous system. Obviously, hormones are slow and long term versus nervous system fast, short term. Growth hormone stimulates what specifically, but like all tissues, but specifically bone and skeletal muscles. So the body build increase. If somebody's having excessive amounts of growth hormone, we talked about this. If it is in a child, giantism. If it's an adult, acromegaly. How about growth hormone deficiency? Dwarfism. So we have three abnormalities. Two of them over secretion, and one is under secretion. Over secretion. Is it during childhood or adulthood? Childhood, giantism. Adulthood, acromegaly, like Abraham Lincoln. Deficiency or low level, that's dwarfism. Now, we are going to go to the rest of the hormones, and in each one of the glands, you have to know which hormone is secreted from each one and what does it do. We are not going to go too deep, but generally speaking, you have to know what does it do for each gland. We will be doing this. So we'll start with the thyroid and parathyroid hormone. And the reason why we are talking about them together is that the parathyroid is in the back of the thyroid. Like if you look at the thyroid gland, if you look in the back, rotated, and look in the back, you will see four tiny glands, and these are the parathyroid gland, even though they have no connection to each other. They are completely separate. It's just a location. So thyroid hormone, what do you secrete? Thyroid gland, what do you secrete? Thyroid hormone. Parathyroid gland, parathyroid hormone. Easy. Generally speaking, what does the thyroid hormone do? Increase overall metabolism. It's responsible for metabolism. If there is one word I want you to remember, metabolism. You have to remember this. What's metabolism? All these reactions happening in our body, including the production of energy and heat out of it, energy specifically. So, meaning if you have normal amount of thyroid, your metabolism will be normal. Like all these reactions, including energy and all that, everything will be just normal. If you have higher thyroid hormone, that will increase metabolism. You get more energy, but you get more heat and you get negatives. If you, on the other hand, if you have low thyroid hormone, it's the opposite. You have low metabolism, less reactions, less energy, less heat, and so on. Parathyroid hormone, what does it do? Increase calcium in the blood. Basics. It cannot be less than this. Thyroid hormone, increase overall metabolism. Thyroid gland, secrete thyroid hormone, increase metabolism. Parathyroid gland, secrete parathyroid hormone, increase blood calcium. Minimum. This is what you have to know. So if you look at this picture, this is thyroid hormone from the front. And there are two types of thyroid hormone, T3 and T4. But more importantly, I want you to know it increases metabolism. Plus, this is for adults or for uh, adults and even children. In the fetus, one more thing. In the fetus, it's important for central nervous system development. That's it. That's what I want you to know. So what do we need to know about the thyroid hormone? Are you talking about fetus or after birth, like child and adult? Fetus, CNS, central nervous system. In order to develop and maturate, you have to have enough amount of thyroid. And that's why pregnant ladies, this is one of the basics. If any pregnant lady go to the doctor for follow-up, um, these are basics. They have to do thyroid hormone, and if it is normal, you're okay. If it's not normal, they have to. They have to take care of it because this can be severe. If the mom doesn't have enough thyroid hormone, believe it or not, the nervous system of the fetus will not grow and will not maturate. And basically, they will be born with mental retardation. And this is something that can be avoided. Just make sure that you have enough thyroid hormone during pregnancy. That's it. So this is for fetus. For adults, metabolism. Fetus, CNS growth. Adults or after birth, it is metabolism. It's also good to know that there is one more secretion that's called calcitonin that also come from the thyroid gland beside the thyroid hormone. And calcitonin decrease calcium in the blood, which is the opposite of parathyroid hormone. So to wrap it up, thyroid hormone, thyroid gland secrete thyroid hormone and calcitonin. Thyroid hormone, what does it do? Are you talking about fetus or after birth, children and adults? Fetus, nervous system maturation. After birth, metabolism. What else from the thyroid gland? Calcitonin. It decreases calcium in the blood. The opposite of the parathyroid hormone. The opposite of the parathyroid hormone. So here what happened, and we talked about this before, that remember the hypothalamus, I always compare it to president, secrete its order to the thyroid gland, TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone, goes to the vice president, which is the anterior pituitary. And why does that happen? I mentioned it before, I explained it. Because this order for the thyroid gland to produce its thyroid hormone, if this TRH goes to the thyroid will not understand it. This is like, TRH is like Japanese language. So it goes to the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary will write it in English, which is TSH, and TSH go to the thyroid hormone, telling the thyroid hormone to secrete. I'm sorry, to go into the thyroid gland, telling the thyroid gland to secrete thyroid hormone. If that increased, negative feedback to the hypothalamus anterior pituitary to lower their orders so that we produce less thyroid hormone. That's if it increase. If it decrease, the opposite. Okay. Sorry, it's my allergy acting up. So this is the basic negative feedback, and that apply for all the hormones, hypothalamus, pituitary, and then the gland itself. If the size of the thyroid gland increase, this is called goiter. Do you mean increase like increase and secrete more thyroid hormone? Not necessarily. Goiter is increased size. That's it. It can be active or not. This is another thing. Like this person have a big body, but is he powerful? Not necessarily. Maybe it's the muscles are big in size, but not strong, weak. There are some people like this. So it's all about the size. This is called goiter. And that's because for whatever reason, they produce too much TSH or TRH. So too much orders to the thyroid gland, produce more, grow, 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 grow. So the gland increase in size, we call that goiter. Goiter does not mean overproduction of thyroid hormone. It's size. That's it. Goiter is size. As you see here, just the size is getting bigger. Is it producing more or not? This is another thing. I'm talking about size versus function, structure versus function. Structure, size, increase. Function, this is another issue. So function, yes, it can produce more thyroid hormone or less thyroid hormone. Hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. Hypo, obviously low. Hyper means high. So I'm not going to go into the details. That will be too much unless you want to read it. But what I want you to know is, what are the abnormalities of the thyroid gland? Are you talking about structure or function? Size or production? Size. Goiter. Increase in size, goiter. How about the function? Is it like linked? No. It can be increased size without increased production. Increased production, hyperthyroidism. Low production, hypo. For everything, it's the same. Hypo. Put it beside anything, it will work. Hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. Hypoparathyroidism, hyperparathyroidism. Just put it beside anything, it will make sense. So obviously, if you have hyper, it means you produce more thyroid hormone, increase in metabolism, and other things. I'm not going to go through it. Hypo, low thyroid, low metabolism, good enough. Parathyroid, here are the four tiny glands in the back of the thyroid. And I want you to know that it increases calcium level in the blood. And the opposite for that is calcitonin. You do need to remember this. For each gland, what's a hormone? What does it do in general without going in depth? Generally speaking, what do you do? So for parathyroid gland, if you forgot it, you didn't get anything. Like parathyroid gland, what does it do? Parathyroid hormone. What's a parathyroid hormone? Increase calcium level in the blood. You have to know it like this. Anything else is extra, but you cannot forget this. How does it do? How does it increase calcium level in the blood? It take the calcium from the bone. It take the calcium from the digestive system, increasing uh, absorption, decrease excretion from the kidney, so you don't lose calcium. You take it from the bone. You take it from the digestive system. You take it from the kidney by stopping the kidney from losing it. Hyperparathyroidism, no much details. Just it's hyper and parathyroid. A lot of parathyroid. What happened? High calcium. That's it. Higher than normal calcium. And what's the opposite of parathyroid hormone? Calcitonin. What help the the parathyroid hormone in this part specifically, increasing calcium absorption? Vitamin D. Vitamin D. Where do we make vitamin D? In the skin. Where do we activate it? Kidney. So I'm not going to go through much details, just hormone, what does it do? When it's high, what do you call it? When it's low, what do you call it? So thyroid or parathyroid hormone, which one increase the metabolic rate and growth, and including the development and function of the nervous system? Obviously, this is the thyroid. And which one regulate calcium? Basically, increase it, parathyroid. Third question, which one decrease? So if I can put something here, calcitonin decrease calcium level in the blood. Okay. Thyroid, metabolism and nervous system. Parathyroid, increase calcium. Calcitonin, decrease calcium. But remember, parathyroid hormone come from the parathyroid gland. Thyroid and calcitonin, both of them, they are secreted from the thyroid gland. Okay. Next gland, the gland that's above the kidney, and I mentioned it. Ad or supra means above. Renal means kidney. Adrenal gland, the gland above the kidney. And this gland is two portions, two parts. The cover from outside, this is called cortex. And the medulla means the core, the inside. And this is the inner part. So cortex secretes something, the medulla secretes something. What do you secrete? Cortex, cortisol, and it even similar to it. Cortex, cortisol. Cortex, cortisol. Cortisol, which is the glucocorticoid that we all hear about, the one for stress. Like if you are stressed, this hormone will be secreted more. But we mentioned this is called sympathetic, and it's adrenaline. Yes, beside adrenaline, there is also the cortisol, and this is if you ever got a treatment and they told you this is cortisone, whether it is like ointment, local, or they give you like tablets or even injection. Yes, this is the cortisone. So it fights stress. Beside fighting the stress, it suppress allergy and inflammation. It is stress hormone, decrease allergy and inflammation. And usually that's the reason they give us this treatment as needed. Of course, they don't give us cortisol to be stressed or something. Of course not. It is produced when we are stressed, and it will increase glucose level. But why do we take it as a treatment? Because of the other thing, which is anti-allergic, anti-inflammatory. Anti-allergic, anti-inflammatory. So you're having some sort of allergy, they give you cortisol. You have some inflammation, they give you cortisol. The other secretion that also come from the cortex, which is the cover outside, is aldosterone. Aldosterone increase blood pressure by water and salt retention. It go to the kidney and take back sodium and water. So what is the name of the gland above the kidney? Adrenal gland or suprarenal gland. Ad and supra is the same. What do we need to know about it? Secretion, hormone. What's the hormone? Are you talking about the cortex from outside or the medulla inside? Cortex, cortisol, and aldosterone. Medulla, adrenaline, noradrenaline, also known as epinephrine, norepinephrine. Epinephrine is adrenaline. Norepinephrine is noradrenaline. If you see it somewhere. How is that the same? Yes, epi is another one. Epi, add, supra. Yes, they are adding even more. Um, like we don't have enough, but it is what it is. So epi means same thing, on top of. Nephron is part of the kidney, so it's the same thing. Epinephrine is adrenaline. Norepinephrine is noradrenaline. And what is this? This is the one that we talked about in the nervous system. Remember sympathetic and parasympathetic? Sympathetic, remember the fight, fright, flight. If you are fighting, you produce this hormone to prepare you for the fight. Yes, this is adrenaline or epinephrine. Adrenaline's cousin or epinephrine's cousin is nor. Just add nor before the word. Nor, his cousin. Of course, I'm making that up to help you remember. But basically, these secretions from the adrenal medulla, which is the core, the inner part, this adrenaline, noradrenaline, also known as epinephrine, norepinephrine. Uh, Long-term stress, why they always tell us avoid stress. Stress is bad. Long-term stress is bad. It's horrible. It is. Yes, because if you are under stress, if you are under stress, you are putting your body in emergency mode. This is an emergency mode. So by doing this, you are favoring certain parts of your body to help you in this situation and on the expense of other parts of the body. So in this case, you're secreting adrenaline or adrenaline in the beginning, and then cortisol will be secreted, and cortisol is the stress hormone. It's um, it favors certain parts of the body on the expense of others. Excuse me. So this is obviously it is designed for just a little bit. If you're under stress for a few minutes, for an hour or something, that's okay. But you cannot be stressed for days because um, you cannot like do that for a long time. And and I would say this is basically if you work in a factory and you're working just normal hours, let's say you're working from 8 to 4, and that's your daily work, and then all of a sudden they say, okay guys, we got a big order and we have to do it within 2 weeks, so we'll be working day and night for just this week until we get this order done, and then we go back to normal. Yes, but we will be exhausted and will be tired and deprived of sleep, and yes, yes, this is just temporary. It's not something that we will do forever. So just until we get that done. This is the same thing. If you are under stress, your body via adrenaline or in this case cortisol will utilize your resources just to fight or to face the stress, depriving others. So it can cause different issues. Like it's anti-allergic, anti-inflammatory, it suppresses the immunity, it can cause hypertension. It's a lot of things you don't have to know. It's just too much. Just all what I want you to know is stress hormone, cortisol from the suprarenal, aldosterone also from the suprarenal. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Uh, for temporary stress, and aldosterone reabsorbs sodium and water to increase blood pressure if it is low, if the sodium is low, and if the blood pressure is low. So here it is. Which one secrete cortisol and aldosterone? Cortex, of course. If you forgot it, cortex, cortisol. It sounds the same. Cortex, cortisol, plus aldosterone. Which one, epinephrine, norepinephrine? The medulla, of course. Cortisol, which is a stress hormone, it increases blood glucose because you are under stress. You need more glucose to produce more energy to face the stress. And this is bad on the long term. Aldosterone help to regulate blood pressure. How? Water and salt balance. It reabsorbs sodium and water. Epinephrine. What's the use for epinephrine? Fight, fright, flight. Remember the sympathetic. Epinephrine and norepinephrine, these are the sympathetic hormone. They also increase blood sugar, among other things. We talked about that in details, if you remember. If you are in a fight, increase heart rate, increase respiratory rate, dilation of the bronchi, dilation of the eye pupil, diverting the blood to the muscles and to the brain, and we talked about this. Next is the pancreas. And remember, the pancreas is dual gland, doing a dual job. And we talked about this before. The main part of the gland is exocrine gland. Digestive enzymes through the ducts go to the intestine. The island in the pancreas is the endocrine part, and it secretes hormones. What are these hormones? Two hormones, and they are opposing each other. One of them will take the upper hand as needed. Insulin, I think we all know insulin. Somebody's diabetic, they take insulin shots, right? So insulin lower blood glucose. Glucagon increase blood glucose. So gluca should remind you, glucagon, you gain glucose. Glucagon. Just this is something just to help you remember. Glucagon, you gain glucose. So increase blood sugar. Insulin, we all know. So these are the two opposing hormone, and both of them come from the same island, from the same pancreatic islet, or the islet of Langerhans. Pancreatic islet. Islet is island. So how can we secrete both of them? Yes, we do secrete both of them. And if blood glucose goes down, glucagon take the upper hand, increase it. If blood glucose goes up, insulin take the upper hand, decrease it. So here it is, exocrine cells, which are all, look at all these cells. This is the exocrine part. Of course, the glands contain ducts. It will take these digestive enzymes to the intestine. While the endocrine cells, which is called the islet, pancreatic islet or islet of Langerhans, this is the one that secretes hormones. Alpha cells secrete glucagon, you need to know that, and beta cells secrete insulin. Delta cells secrete somatostatin, not the most important thing. This is important. Alpha and beta. So what are the enzymes, the hormones from the pancreas islet, from the pancreatic islet? Alpha cells, glucagon, help to glucagon to gain glucose, increase glucose. Insulin from the beta cells, decrease it. So alpha cells, glucagon, gaining glucose. Insulin, decreasing glucose. The others are not that important. We hear about diabetes, and we always think diabetes is low insulin, and that's not true. It's not true. It is the effect of insulin is not happening for some reason. Type 1 is the one that we all know. We do not produce enough insulin. And this is the one that usually go like occur early in life, like to children and stuff. But there is another type, type 2. Type 2, we do not have issue with the insulin. We produce normal amount of insulin. But the tissues, the receptors in the tissue or in our cells are not responding. There is resistance. So what's diabetes? High blood glucose. Two types. Type 1 is the one that we all know. We don't make enough insulin. This is one type. This is not diabetes. This is type 1 only. We don't make enough insulin. Why? Something happened in the beta cells of the pancreatic islet. That island, the beta cells in there, is destroyed or broken down or something for whatever reason. There are several reasons. Since you don't make insulin, so the treatment is insulin. But there is another type. We do in type 2, those people, they do make insulin. But the problem is not the insulin. The problem is resistance. The cells are resistant. They do not respond. So if that's the case, there are other medications. And usually it's not shots. It's not insulin. It's something else to help the cells take the glucose. Okay? This is just something if you're interested to know. Insulin pump. This is something that and instead of measuring your blood sugar, it does that automatically. It measures the blood sugar. If it is okay, that's fine. If it goes up, a shot will be produced, giving you insulin automatically. Um, does increased blood glucose is diabetes? You can't say it like this. It's not accurate to say increased blood glucose is diabetes. No, it's increased blood glucose above certain limits. Meaning, if it increased a little bit, we don't call it diabetes. We call it pre-diabetes. Like if your blood pressure is a little bit high, and if you come to me, I will say, no, you don't have hypertension, but my blood pressure is a little bit high. Yes, a little bit high. This is called pre-hypertension. You are on your way to be hypertensive. Same thing for diabetes. Like if normal blood sugar fasting is 70 to 100 or 110. If you're coming to me and say my blood sugar is 125, 130, am I diabetic? No, you are pre-diabetic. You are on your way to be diabetic. It has to go above certain limits. And this is metabolic syndrome. It's something that can happen that's before developing the actual diabetes or hypertension. You can read it if you're interested. But all what I want you to know here is it's not yes or no. It's not diabetic or not diabetic. No. You can be normal, you can be diabetic, and you can be in between, pre-diabetic. So which cells secrete glucagon? Alpha cells. What does it do? Increase blood glucose. Which one make insulin? Beta cells. You have to remember this. And what's the insulin do? Decrease blood glucose if it is high. What's the disorder of glucose metabolism? Diabetes. Type 1, low insulin. Type 2, insulin resistance. So here is all these three. And the next glands are gonads. And when you say gonads, this is an umbrella. This is a generic term, and it means the sex organs, the primary sex organs, generally speaking. So gonads, male gonads is testes, female gonads are ovaries. And what are the hormones that are secreted from the ovaries? It's estrogen and progesterone, two in females, and only one in males, which is testosterone. And testosterone is actually coming from testes. It's sound the same, testosterone, testes. Estrogen is just the regular female's hormone. Progesterone is to prepare the uterus for gestation. Progesterone. Progestation. What's gestation? Pregnancy. That's why males don't have it. So the equivalent to testosterone is estrogen, and progesterone is an additional hormone preparing the uterus for possible pregnancy. Next gland is the pineal gland, secreting melatonin. And melatonin, if I want you to remember one thing, circadian rhythm or biological clock. Melatonin, biological clock. It help you with the sleep-wake cycle. So if you have disturbances in melatonin, you'll have disturbances of sleep, and it can come also with depression. Um, Other hormones, thymus. We talked about thymus before, secreting thymidine, and the first letter is for the T cells. The heart secretes uh, something called atrial natriuretic peptide. So, but the heart is not endocrine organ. Yes, remember in the beginning I told you there are endocrine organs and endocrine cells. Remember cells? Yes, the heart is a cardiovascular organ for pumping the blood, but there are some cells inside of it that that make diuresis. Skeletal muscles, there is something called irisin, and the digestive tract have gastrin and secretin. That's kind of too much. Um, so I would know all what we talked about so far, including the pineal gland with melatonin and biological clock, including the thymosin for thymus. And just know that there are other cells that also secrete some hormones like these. These are all the hormones together, or the glands together, including glands and cells. It's not all glands. And this is summarizing it. Um, I would say this is too much. Like if you want to use it or take a look at it, that's fine. But what we did is more than enough. Okay, we went through each one of these glands, and for each gland, what's the hormone produced, and what does it do? In simple words, pineal gland, melatonin, biological clock. That's it, which is sleep wake. That's it. Thymosin from the thymus, T cell maturation. That's it. Okay, and that's it for this chapter. This is a summary as usual.